It's interesting. I think often people are afraid too to talk about religion. And when I say people, I mean professors as well. Like I've talked to a lot of professors who teach politics or history or things like that or psychology, and yeah, religion scares them as a topic. Is this okay, by the way? I just sat in front of a bookcase.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
Amazing, honestly. So professional. Hello, everyone. My name is Jessie. I'm a third year commerce student.
My name is Aaliyah. I'm a third year history and political science student. And today, Jesse and I are joined by Professor Ken Derry. I'm going to give him the floor to introduce himself and the course he will be teaching this summer.
Hi, I'm Ken Derry. I teach religion at the University of Toronto, Mississauga. I've been at U of T for a long time. I came many years ago as an undergraduate student to study biophysics, actually. Took two electives that changed my life. One was in Japanese literature, which really was just because I knew nothing about it and it fit my schedule. And the other course I took was on religion, and I didn't know anything about religion either. After taking those two courses in second year, I enjoyed them a lot more, and I ended up going into religious studies and Japanese studies. The studies I did on Japanese culture led me to participate in a student exchange program as an undergraduate. I was the first person in my family to go to university. And so this was just a mind-blowing experience. So I spent a year in Japan, lived with a family, I went to school there. And when I came back, it changed the way I understood myself and the way I understood the world. And it gave me a really deep appreciation for how meaningful those kinds of experiences can be.
So you basically did a full pivot from that elective that you took. Wow, you really never know where life will take you.
Nope,
Yeah.
it never would have occurred to me that I would be doing any of the things that I do now. The course that I teach is in Hong Kong, and it's a world religions course with a bit of a twist. So we do a sort of examination of the standard things you would do in a world religions course. So we look at a number of what are often called sort of big religions. So Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Judaism, as well as some work on Confucianism and Taoism. We look at that both through the sort of traditional way, which is read a textbook that tells us things about the history and the main beliefs and practices of those religions. And then we visit different sites in Hong Kong. We visit a synagogue and a mosque and temples and so forth.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Moving on to our first question. So, would you mind sharing a bit about your professional and academic background and what inspired you to lead a summer abroad course in Hong Kong?
As a staff person, I had visited Hong Kong, and having lived in East Asia for a while as an undergraduate, I sort of knew that part of the world. The way the program works is that instructors have to put in applications. And so I knew enough about Hong Kong. I wasn't an expert on religion in Hong Kong, but I knew enough to know that it was really easy to experience a variety of religious sites in a way that's kind of similar to Toronto, but in a Hong Kong way. So what I do is quite different, but I'm always really interested in these kind of traditional religious ways of thinking about religion, like what is Christianity, what is Buddhism, those sorts of things. So I wanted to learn what that would be like in Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong is an amazing city, and I was just really kind of curious. So I put in an application. It seemed like a really ideal place to do the course that I had in mind. The other piece of the course that I didn't mention that's related to what I teach at UTM is that we also learn about kind of lenses to look at religion through or theories to think about religion with. So, for example, ideas about gender. So you can think about religion in relationship to gender and then go to different sites, let's say in Hong Kong, and see how that plays out. You know, are there gender separations? Are there ways different traditions speak about divine beings that's gendered? We look at ritual, ideas about ritual, what ritual does, purposes that it serves. And again, we go to different sites and see what people are actually doing and interactions between religion and culture. It's kind of theory light in a sense. We're not doing a deep dive into complicated theory, but I am interested in these different sorts of lenses. It's one of the main things that I teach at UTM. And so I brought that to the course in Hong Kong as well.
Would you mind sharing what you hope students achieve from taking this course or different goals that they can take away?
One broad goal that's not specific to the course is being excited about the world. And I think religion is a really good way to get a sense of the diversity of ways of being a human being in the world. This is one of the reasons why I became really interested in religion. I remember going with friends to churches and synagogues and temples, and I just thought, this is so interesting and weird. Like I would never have imagined the things that go on in those spaces. So for people who don't know about religion at all or about other religions, that's just really important in general. And then doing that in another place just sort of ratchets the whole thing up a little bit. I think human life is really sort of spectacular and often also, of course, upsetting and violent and terrible. But all of that is worth learning about. I mean, it's interesting to me that it seems so crucial to the world. I mean, I didn't think about this either before I started studying it. I kind of thought religion was maybe a bit outdated, and there's a theory that we're becoming as people less religious, but there's no evidence to support that actually. And so, I mean, it's just when you think about like the US election that's happened, I mean, religion was so crucial in that election in a bunch of ways. And so to think that this doesn't matter anymore is a bit silly. It's interesting. I think often people are afraid too to talk about religion. And when I say people, I mean professors as well. Like I've talked to a lot of professors who teach politics or history or things like that or psychology, and they're yeah, religion scares them as a topic because it's uncomfortable and it's upsetting to people. And it's a thing to learn to talk about religion in a way that's respectful but still can be critical.
Building off of that, so what exactly would a typical day
Mm.
in a day in this course look like?
This course, I think, has this is I'm going to make a claim here based on my experience as a staff person, and things may have changed, but I think the course that I teach has more field trips than any other course. Pretty much almost every day we're going somewhere. There's the occasional day when we just have class, and then everybody goes off and lives their life for the rest of the day. But most days are either the whole day is a field trip. So there are some sort of bigger field trips that we do. We do a bus trip into the new territories, for example, where we stop at a number of different sites, including this really interesting place. It's a Taoist temple, but in right beside the temple, there's a wishing tree. But the actual wishing tree, the way you would do a wish is you would tie a wish to an orange with a kind of string, and then you would throw the orange into the tree. But when people did that for so long, it started to kill the tree. So they built a fake tree beside the real tree, and then you throw fake oranges into the fake tree. And so you write your wish on the piece of paper. So there's a little stand there that sells these fake oranges. Part of the idea of the course with the field trips is I want people to see not just a range of religious traditions, but I want to explore a lot of Hong Kong. Hong Kong, as you may know, is actually made up of several hundred small islands, which we can't all go to, but we go to a couple of the bigger ones. So Lama Island and Chung Chau, Lantau, Lama, and Chung Chau are the main ones we go to. So we do a couple of big field trips like that. And then otherwise we do smaller field trips, which usually means we are in class for an hour and a half. And then we get on a bus or the subway and go to a mosque or a synagogue and then visit with people. So they take us around and they explain the history of the place, and students can ask questions, and you get to see another neighborhood in the city. It's pretty fun. Also, on all of these field trips, people eat food at some point, right? So one of the great things about Hong Kong culture, food culture, is that it's communal. So when we stop for food, it means people are sitting around a table, large groups are sitting together around these tables and then sharing food, which is just such a great experience.
Just based off of like the typical day and breakdown, this program seems so interesting and so fun. My next question though is, what are some of the highlights of the program or any specific favorite memories you have?
When I ask students typically for their favorite moments, one of them is always this Hindu temple that we go to. They end up playing music and having us sing, and often they bring out clothing. And so some students are able to wear sort of traditional clothing, and they always feel really happy that they also feed us. So the food there is also quite good. So they feed us, there's dancing and singing, and it's a really good way for the students to connect so they feel more comfortable with each other. It's hard because, I mean, dancing is inherently kind of silly, I think. And so, I mean, unless you're a professional. And so there's something about being a little bit silly in that way together and in an unexpected way, like they're in this kind of sacred site, but they're dancing. And the first time was I didn't know that was going to happen. So that was a good memory. We've had some moments. There's a large Buddha on an island we go to, that's kind of cool. But nearby, there's a small fishing village, and You can take boats out into the ocean for like almost nothing. It's very cheap to get a boat ride. And so you go in a small group, like you can get about a dozen people on a boat. And if you're lucky, you get to see white dolphins jumping in the water. They're sort of a little bit pinkish, but they're white dolphins. The last field trip we do is to this island called Chung Chau, and people can rent bicycles. And so riding around on that island is really wonderful. There's a beach that the students often go to, and we will go to a cave. And I remember the first time we did the cave, you're on a path and it just seems like a normal place, but you go through the cave and you come out the other side, and the other side ends up overlooking the ocean. It's really dramatic. You sort of look down and there's rocks and waves crashing. And so that's really exciting each time. So that's a highlight. So those are some of the highlights of the program and moments that I've really enjoyed.
In order for someone to be able to enjoy all of these amazing experiences that you've just gone over, what advice would you give to students before enrolling/taking the course?
The things that I tend to tell students, so there's sort of two things. One is very practical. One of the jobs I had when I worked in the summer abroad office was giving out money, which was a really nice job. But one of the challenges, as you may know, the Hong Kong program actually has more money available for students than any of the other programs because of a very wealthy donor years ago, Stanley Ho. And just trying to convince students that U of T would give them money to go to a place. That was a challenge. So that's one advice. One piece of advice I would give students is believe that U of T has money, and it doesn't cost you anything to ask for it. So be aware that it exists, and then just take a chance. If it doesn't work out, then you're no worse off than you were before. And now there's more money, I'm assuming, has accumulated. I don't obviously deal with those accounts anymore, but because this program has not run for a few years, that money has just been accumulating. So yeah, apply for money. And then for Hong Kong itself, I mean, I don't think people need to do anything particular for my course to prepare, but I think to be in Hong Kong, the one thing that I hear from students is that they regret, that they wish they had done, is some research on the city beforehand. Because as you both know, the time goes by. It seems like you're there a long time. You're there for a month, but the time goes by so fast. And so they are always learning about things at the end, and then feeling sad. And that happens to me as well, of course. And the lucky thing for me is I got to go back, several times. But yeah, so do some research before. And then the last thing, and this is also just about Hong Kong, is that be aware Hong Kong is really hilly and really hot and humid. So it helps to be ready to walk. So yeah, just to get yourself in shape if that's something that you're able to do. I mean, it's hard to practice the heat part, but yeah, just be ready for that because you can enjoy Hong Kong a lot more.
I have one more quick question.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
just like anecdotally, based on your experience, like when it comes to the funding aspect, do you remember any students being like, I got a lot of funding or full funding?
Most students got full funding, and it was when I was doing the program, it was $5,000 a student. I know they lowered it at one point to 4,500. I don't know what it'll be this year, but Hong Kong is also one of the less expensive programs. I mean, it's one of the reasons I think why the program used to be the largest program until COVID.
Oh, I really want to go to Hong Kong now.
There's
Seems
spaces.
interesting.
It's not full yet.
Yeah, thank you for all of that information. This course seems really, really interesting. I'm also very interested in it now.
Oh
Definitely
no, I have
into that
competition.
yeah. When applications open, I will definitely be looking into that.
Have
I
either of you been to Hong Kong?
I haven't.
I have, yes. Honestly, I feel it's a really good intersection between, I guess, like Asian culture, but also like democratized.
Sometimes people would call it for anyone who hadn't been to Asia before. Some people call it a quote soft landing. Like it's English is still an official language in Hong Kong. It's easy to navigate. It's a really welcoming city, so people can get maybe more culture shock by going to other places in East Asia. But this is a really good sort of entry point for people who aren't familiar with that part of the world at all.
Yeah, completely agree.
I'm really glad that the courses are back in Hong Kong because I know that they paused after
Yeah.
COVID, but all of the courses that are offered there seem really interesting, especially yours, and just the whole area seems really beautiful and interesting as well.